Hi, I'm Loli, and I'm so glad you are here.
Today's video is part of the Just Our Imagination Challenge, and this month we are tasked with creating DIYs using some spoons, some clothespins, and mouse traps. Yes, mouse traps. For our first inspiration, we are going to go ahead and use some spoons, and I'm going to use one of these golf balls that come in a pack of 6 from Dollar Tree, from the toy section, and I'm going to glue the spoons to it, as you see right there, adding a nice generous amount of hot glue. Once I add the second spoon, and make sure to overlap it a little bit over the other spoon, and I continue to do this until the entire side of the golf ball was completely covered. It took me 5 spoons to do this. Friends, I want to take a quick moment to say thank you for clicking on my video. Thank you for watching, and welcome. Once all 5 spoons were here, we are going to go ahead and clip off the handles. And I'm going to trim it a little bit at the end here to make sure that they're not sharp and that they all are at the same level. And then I continue to add some more spoons, but now I'm cutting them before I add them on. So I'm trying to add them to the places where the 2 previous spoons overlap, and then adding it, making sure that we have nice adhesion, but a little bit lower than the other ones, so they look a little bit more spaced in between. And here I'm just cutting some extra ones so I don't have to cut as I'm going, and we are going to save those sticks because we're going to be using further out. So then here, just adding some hot glue exactly where we see that the spoon will fall, and then just place it in place until it dries. And for the second row, I added, I believe it was 5 also, 5 spoons as well. In the second row, there was a little bit less adhesion, so I was just adding some hot glue to the places that was not touching, just to make sure that each one of the spoons was secured properly. And this is how it's looking like so far. So now we are going to add some hot glue to the back of all the spoons, just to give this a little bit more stability and more security. And we're going to add some more spoons apparently. There was some areas in which I felt like it needed a little bit more, so I came in with just 1 more. And now we're going to take this little dowel rod, and we're going to add some hot glue to the bottom of this piece, as you see there, hold it in place. I am holding it upward because I want that glue to go a little bit to the stick. And then I'm going to fill up the entire cavity with hot glue to make sure that the stick stays in place. Once it's dried, I'm going to add it to a piece of foam, as you see right here. And I'm going to take it outside and spray paint it with this yellow Rust-Oleum paint. While that drying, I'm going to take this terracotta planter and paint it using some apple barrel white paint. I got this little guy from the Dollar Tree. Then I'm going to use this napkin that I also got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut it so I have enough to cover this piece right here. I'm going to remove that extra ply that the napkin comes with, and then I'm going to take some Mod Podge, and we're going to add Mod Podge to the little terracotta planter in small sections, and we're going to keep adding the napkin, as you see right here. I am adding it very carefully, making sure that I have a little bit of an overlap towards the top of the terracotta planter, and as you see here, I am patting it down to make sure that it also contours to the little edges and the ridges of the terracotta planter. And then I'm coming in with a wet brush with Mod Podge, and I'm making sure that that lays really flat. I wasn't trying to have this look like completely wrinkle free. I do want this to have a nice Mod Podge or decoupage look to it. So I'm just adding the Mod Podge on top of the napkin, adhering it as I'm also sealing it at the same time, making sure that it adheres to each of the contours of this piece. And I'm just going in small sections here, and I'm cutting off any excess, and I'm adding some to the bottom here and bringing the sides in to make sure that I have a nice finished piece. And I'm just adding pieces of napkins here and there until I have the entire terracotta planter completely covered. And I did not just do 1 layer of napkins, I did 2. This is what it looked like. Once everything was nice and dry, I'm going to take some of this, I believe this is called chocolate brown from Apple Barrel, and I'm going to give 2 coats of that paint to the dowel rod. I put it down to dry, and once that dried, I'm going to go ahead and add some floral moss to my plant, as you see right there. Just make sure to secure it with some hot glue at the bottom. And then I'm going to position that right into my planter, as you see right there. Then I'm going to come in with some of the Spanish moss from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to glue it on top of my floral foam as well. I gave it a quick little haircut, making sure that everything was nice and neat. I cleaned up that mess I had with my moss. And then I'm going to take some jute cord and just button off the fuzzies before I add it to my planter. And just added a little bit of hot glue to different sections of the planter and wrapped it around that seam, as you see right there, making sure to land in that first piece where I ended. And I just cut the piece of jute cord flush to that piece to make sure that it looked like one continuous piece. I went over and just glued the end right here, making sure that it was nice and seamless. And then I created a little jute cord bow and added it right into that seam so it will not be visible. First, of course, I had to bond the fuzzies. And this is what it turned out like. You'll see it again in the final reveal. Friends, as I mentioned earlier, today's video is part of the Just of Imagination Challenge that is hosted monthly by Brenda from Rustic and Lace DIYs and Kathy Jo from Kathy Jo's DIYs. And their guest host this month is Jessica from The Busy Housewife. The links to their channels and to their playlists will be linked in the description box below and also pinned in the comments. Make sure that you head on over to their channels and to their playlist and show everyone some love. All right, for our next inspiration today, we will be using some clothespins. So we're going to take these clothespins from the Dollar Tree. So for this, I ended up using, I believe it was six clothespins I used. And I'm just removing them from the little metal clip things over here. And I'm just going to butt them to each other in the opposite of how they were. And I'm going to glue them together using some hot glue and some wood glue. And I make sure to add a little bit of boxwood on the very top. In that section down here, I guess not where you will squeeze, but where the clothespin will be squeezing onto something. If that make any sense? This you see right there, look at what I mean. And I did that with all 6 of these. For the second one here, I tried a different technique that I want to show you. Here I did the glue in first and then I put it in the middle. But here I'm adding the glue first to one side only, adding the hot glue in, then putting my piece of boxwood onto that piece where the hot glue was and then sandwiching them together. So you can do it either way, it's easiest for you. And then I filled up the holes with some hot glue. Now it's time to paint them. I used this pumpkin orange color from Apple Barrel and I painted all the wood using this color, making sure to do 2 coats on the areas that had the hot glue. Once those were nice and dry, I'm going to go ahead and arrange them as you see right here. So I'm just want to put 3 buttered up together, making sure the flat section was the bottom, and I'm putting 3 in the bottom and 2 in the top. And I'm going to tie them with some jute cord. I just tied them in a single knot first, then wrap the jute cord around the entire bundle of carrots. If you can see right here, they're carrots. And I'm going to just wrap it around a couple of times and then give it a little cute jute bow right there. And then I'm going to embellish it using this little flower that I got from a pick from Dollar Tree, and just removing that stem off. And we're going to glue it towards the top section of that bow using some hot glue. And that is it for this one. Let me know what you think. More of it in the final review. Our next inspiration here, we're going to be using these mouse straps. So we're going to remove it from the packaging and remove all that metal contraption thing, being very careful not to hurt ourselves with it. So I use a screwdriver for most of the work and some needle nose pliers as well. My friends, if you enjoyed this video so far, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up. And I hope you enjoy it and you consider subscribing. And if you do, hit the notification bell so it notifies you each time that I upload a new video. All these things are free and they mean the world to me. Once all pieces were off, I'm going to just go ahead and sand off the edges. And this was a sticker, so just remove that. And we are going to sand off all the edges, making sure that there's no splinters. And we're going to fill in the little holes left behind with a little bit of hot glue. I added the hot glue, and then I used a little wipey and my favorite tool, my nail, to go ahead and smooth that over so we have no bumpy areas. So here we're going to just paint the piece using some white apple barrel chalk paint. Then I decided that I did not want that piece of wire after all. I removed it, I sanded it off a little bit, and added a little bit of hot glue off camera. And then here I'm going to go ahead and add some Mod Podge to the front of this piece. Let the Mod Podge become tacky. And then I'm going to add some of this napkin to it. I just cut a piece that was big enough to fit the entire piece. I removed that second ply of tissue off of it. And I'm going to add that paper there when the Mod Podge is damp. It can stick on it, but it's not going to saturate the paper, and this avoids any wrinkling. So I'm just placing it down until it adheres correctly. And then I'm going to come in with a piece of, what is this? Plastic wrap, saran wrap, and some heat, smoothing out some edges that did not adhere completely. And this was so easy to do. Now here, just using my nail file to sand off any excess napkin on the edges of this little board. Then we're going to add this carrot to the front, as you see right there, just using some hot glue to adhere it. To embellish it a little further, I took some jute cord. I burned off the fuzzies, of course, and then I'm going to glue it to the middle of my piece right there, and I wrapped it around 2 times. I glued it right there in the middle and attached a jute cord bow to the front. And that is it for this one. More of it in the final reveal. I want to take a quick moment to say thank you to my subscribers for subscribing, commenting, liking, sharing. All these things help me tremendously. They help my channel grow, and I appreciate you very much for them. And if you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and subscribe and join the Loli D's Creations family. It is free and it means the world to me. For our next inspiration this evening, we will be using another one of these mouse straps from Dollar Tree. I already took everything off, sanded it down, patched up the holes, and now we're going to paint it with this white apple barrel acrylic paint. And I'm going to use this little bunny also from Dollar Tree, and I also painted it white. Now we're going to use the same napkin that we used for the previous DIY. We're going to cut a section that is big enough to cover our bunny. I'm going to remove that extra ply of napkin, and we are going to Mod Podge our bunny. As I'm Mod Podging the bunny, I wanted to have a little bit of texture, so I do not want that napkin to be perfect. So I am adding my my napkin to the Mod Podge as it's still wet, and I'm just tapping in dog as I'm going, and I'm adding Mod Podge on top of it as well to adhere it to the board, and at the same time protect my napkin. So here I'm just going in smaller portions, adding Mod Podge as needed, because the Mod Podge for me right now is drying pretty quickly. It's kind of hot right now where I'm sitting, so I'm doing it slowly, taking my time, making sure that every little inch of this bunny is properly adhered to the napkin, or the napkin to the bunny, either way. I also continued to add some more Mod Podge to the top of my bunny because I did want to make sure that I had some of those wrinkles come through on here as well. And even though I was doing it pretty wet, the napkin barely had any wrinkles. And I wanted to also make sure that my edges were nicely saturated, because instead of sanding off, I wanted to tear off that napkin off my bunny and have a nice clean cut on all of the edges. So this is what I'm doing right here, and just ripping the pieces of the napkin apart, making sure to be careful not to rip it off the bunny. And I seal the edges with some more Mod Podge. Then I'm going to dry it really quickly with a heat gun, and then we are going to add this on. But first I wanted to sand down some areas that had a little bit of paper looking a bit messy, so I'm just sanding down those areas. It wasn't that much sanding. Now I'm going to take this cube that I got from Dollar Tree. I painted it in 3 sides, and I'm going to glue it to the bunny and to the board underneath, as you see right there. to have my bunny stand up. Now we are going to embellish it. I'm going to take this little carrot that I got. I think I got this from, it's a charm that came from a garland at Dollar Tree. So I'm going to just add this to my bunny in a little slant, as you see right there. And then I'm going to come in with some flowers as well. These also came from Dollar Tree. I'm just going to cut small flowers of those. I believe I added 2 to this. I'm cutting the stems pretty short, adding some hot glue to the back of my flowers, and I'm going to add them right there at the feet of my bunny. And then I'm going to add a little teeny weeny little dot there for the eye. And then I decided to add some greenery. So I'm taking pieces of boxwood that I got from Walmart and added it at the very front and at the very back of my bunny. But I still thought that the face looked a little bit bland, so I'm painting here a tiny nose and some whiskers to finish it off. And that is it for this one. You'll see it again in the final reveal. For the next inspiration this evening, we're going to be using some more spoons from Dollar Tree. This one is kind of similar to the first one, but here I'm using also the golf ball and adding it in the same manner, but we're going to add a little bit more spoons than we did for the first DIY. So I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm adding the spoons onto the ball, trying to have the ball nestle in that indentation in the spoon, and I'm overlapping the spoons as I go a little bit right there. And I started with 5 of them interlocking, or actually, pretty much overlapping onto each other. And here I'm just going ahead and trimming it off as I did with the previous one. And with here, I'm going to be adding a bit more rows than I did for the first one. And this is what I turned out with. Then I'm going to take it outside and paint it yellow as we did with the previous one. But I'm going to add some burlap to this. So I took a piece of burlap that I got from Dollar Tree and I folded it in 3 sections. And then I'm going to glue it in place to keep that seam from unraveling. I just used some hot glue to do that. Just being very careful not to burn myself, as the glue can easily go through the holes of the burlap. Once it was nice and dry, I'm going to cut off that excess burlap. Now we are going to adhere it to the flower. So I started here in the corner, making sure that I have a nice clean cut on my burlap before adding it on. And I'm going to be scrunching it up, as you see right there, as I glue it along the entire circumference of the flower. As I near the end of my flower here, I'm making sure to adhere it, to be symmetrical with where I started. I hold it in place, make sure that both pieces of burlap are nicely united so they're seamless, and then I cut off that excess burlap. Now I'm going to scrunch it, as you see right there, and I'm going to add hot glue on the pleats to make sure that they stay in place. And then I'm going to add hot glue to the inside of the burlap there. That way when I squeeze it together, it will adhere together. And I hold it in place until that hot glue set. I reinforced with a little bit of hot glue in some areas that did not adhere correctly and held it in place for a little bit longer. And then I took a piece of burlap and cut it in a circle. And we're going to glue it on top of that area that we just glued to give it a more finished look. Make sure to use your finger protectors for this part right here, because it's quite easy to get burned. I did. There we go. That's me being burned. All right, so then we are going to cut off any excess burlap that is not as ruly and cute. So this is nicely finished. And guys, I decided that I wanted this a different color. So I took some of that pumpkin orange color from Apple Barrel, and I'm going to paint it on all of the petals, going in a outward or a straight up motion on the paint brushes, so I can have some of that yellow peek through alongside with the orange. And that is it for this one. More of it in the final reveal. For this next inspiration, we are going to be using another mouse strap. So I'm going to be using the board from the mouse strap. We're going to paint it white with our Apple Barrel white paint. Then we're going to add Mod Podge to the entire board. I'm going to start with one side first, making sure they're heavily nice and thick. And I'm going to let it be a little tacky. Then I'm going to add a piece of this napkin that I got from Dollar Tree. I use it for the previous DIYs. And I'm just making sure that it's nice and straight. Pardon my nails and pardon my skin as well, guys. I put spray paint all over myself, so I had to like pretty much wash my hands with glue gun. And yeah, that was not cool. You can see how dry my hands were after that. But here I'm just using some heat just to reactivate that Mod Podge and lay this napkin nice and wrinkle free. Then I took some of this other napkin from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut a piece that is big enough to cover that piece that remained blank. So I'm going to add some Mod Podge to that as well, using a small brush, making sure to line that other one nicely. I don't want the other one to be wrinkly. So I waited for the Mod Podge to become tacky, and now I'm placing it down, making sure that I have a nice seamless look between both of these two napkin pieces. Once it was nicely adhered, I'm going to use my file and sand off any excess. Now it's time to attach this little bunny from Dollar Tree. It came in a pack of 6, I believe, or 8. And I'm just going to place it right there towards the bottom. And look how cute that is. But I'm not done yet. I'm going to take some jute cord and we're going to wrap it towards the top section of this piece. So just added a little bit of hot glue in the back, placed the tip of my jute cord on there, wrapped it twice, and attached it back in the back one more time with some hot glue. And then finish it off with a small bow. But wait, I forgot. I'm not done yet. I decided to add some greenery to this as well. So I added some of these flowers, these yellow flowers from Dollar Tree. I just trimmed off the outside pieces to make it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to add it to the bow at the top there. Then I added small pieces of boxwood as well. One to the top section above the bow, and one towards the bottom of the bunny. And that is it for this one. You'll see it again in the final reveal. For our next inspiration here, we are going to be using those little stems from the spoons, along with the last mouse strap. I am cutting the handles of the spoons here and figure out exactly what height I want. Once I figure that out, I'm going to use this piece as a template to cut the other 11 pieces of spoon. As you see right there, I'm just measuring them onto that spoon handle. I'm going to use a small marker to mark exactly where I need to cut it. And I'm going to use my snips right there to cut this, and I cut a total of 12 pieces. As I was cutting, I make sure to also sand down the edges to make sure that it was nice and straight and even. And here are 12 of my pieces all complete. The very top of the stems had this little piece on the top, so I'm going to go ahead and sand it down on each one of those as well. And here they are, nice and smooth. Now we're going to position 4 of our pieces on the long sides and 2 on the shorter sides. So here I'm just using some hot glue to do that, holding it in place until it's set. And I'm doing the 2 corners first here. And then I'm going to try to space out the other 2 on each side, trying to make sure that I have everything nice and even. Once those sides were nicely done, I'm going to go ahead and take Some of these little stir sticks, little pieces that I got from Dollar Tree, they're kind of like stir sticks to me. So I'm going to go ahead and glue it in the middle of those, let's call it pickets. Okay, right there. We're going to measure exactly how much we need. And I'm going to use my snips here to cut off the excess. Then I added a generous amount of hot glue to each one of the little pickets and then position my little stir stick on top of that and just cleaned off any excess. Here I'm using that edge of wood to guide me of where to put the one on the side. So I want to butt them together as you see right there. And then I added the other corner of that side using the hot glue as well. And we're going to cut a piece of stir stick to go in between each one of these pickets. So I did that on here on all three sides. We're going to first position this piece here on this side because I want to do my, let's say that's horizontal. Yes, my horizontal pieces of stir sticks on this side first. So I have the perfect guide to add the other two. And it is easiest to put this together. So once I know how much I need, I'm going to cut off that excess and we're going to glue it on to that side. And I'm going to repeat the same process with the other two sides. Now I'm going to add some stir sticks in between each one of those little pickets that we did with the spoon handles. I'm measuring here a size that's a little bit smaller than the spoon handle pickets. I'm going to go ahead and add one of these little stir sticks after I've sanded down nice and flush to make sure that this is even right there in between at each one of the spoon handle picket. And using my snips, I created a little pointy end. And I repeated this process throughout the entire piece. And then I spray painted it white. And this is what it looked like after that. Now it's time to embellish it. We're going to take some of the Spanish moss from Dollar Tree. We're going to add it to the inside of the little picket fence here. Here I went moss crazy. This was way too much. So I removed some. And then I'm coming in with some of these carrots from Dollar Tree. And we are going to embellish them a little bit better. We're going to take off that sad looking stem. And we're going to come in with some pieces of boxwood instead. But first we are going to fix this little areas here. Sometimes the twine was trying to be unraveled. And so I'm adding some hot glue to that, making sure that it stays nicely secured. Then I'm using this piece of stem to open up that hole a little bit bigger to accommodate the new stem. So here I'm removing a piece of boxwood and I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue into that hole that I'm creating with that stem there. And then I'm going to push that into there. Here you see me, I was trying to make sure that it was fitting. It did. So now I'm coming in with my hot glue and I'm going to go ahead and put it right back in place. And this looks so much cuter, doesn't it? I repeated it with all three of my carrots, position them into my little picket fence here. And we got some beautiful overgrown carrots. Here I'm removing the fuzzies from my twine and we're going to wrap it around that little picket fence about 3 times. Yes, 3 times. And then we're going to tie it in the middle and position a bow as well to embellish it. Once I was satisfied with my bow, I'm going to go ahead and glue it down so it stays in place. Look how cute that is. But we're not done. I'm not done yet. I'm going to take some of the carrots. I'm going to adhere them first. Once I'm happy with where they go, I'm just going to glue them down so they're not going anywhere. So once that is done, I'm going to take some flowers from Dollar Tree, the little yellow ones that I used previously. We are going to cut 2 pretty short down the stem, and we are going to glue each one on between each one of the carrots. And that completes this one. Let me know what you think. Here is the final reveal.
My friends, as always, thank you so much for watching. Be blessed, be a blessing, and craft responsibly. And if you would like to follow me on social media, here are my social media links. And don't forget to visit my friends in the playlist. If you would like to watch some more of my videos, here's a suggestion, and you are more than welcome to binge away with this playlist as well. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. You're amazing. Bye.